Okay, if we're all set, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Service Committee at 6:32. We have kind of a busy agenda. We got a couple little items and we have a couple big items. But I think it will move along pretty well. And I'm going to change the order a little bit, but we'll get it going. So if we can have the gentleman from Eager Court, we'll put you on the hot seat right there. That's the round table there. Okay, just sit down. And by the way, this is our new committee. We're fortunate to add Councilor Brown to our committee this year. And then our senior member is Councilor Irish, and I'm the old guy there. And we also have three other councilors here: Councilor Navin, Councilor Doucette, and we're way down there. So basically, the way it will work, we will overview. We will. Members of the committee can ask any questions, and then the other councilors may also ask questions. And what I hope that we will vote on, make votes tonight, and then I will report them out at the next meeting. Okay, tell us a little bit about your taxi livery business on Eager Court. That's a nice little quiet street there.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Katsunori Tanaka. I provide luxury car service mostly for travelers from Japan. So my work is usually in Boston, like airport in Boston, mainly Boston area. And this is my second renewal. The last 2 years been very difficult for my business, obviously. But the business travel is coming back, and the international travel for business is also coming back from Japan as well. So I would like to renew my license.
Well, we're pleased for you, and we're pleased for the city of Marlborough. We're pleased for everybody that things are picking up. Now, you have one car, which is interesting, just for that small little street there. And by the way, members, his Corey reported out fine from the chief, so we're all set there. And I think personally the site is fine for, your one car, your driveway there. And this is a renewal, so you've had a license, what, the last 3 years?
No, this is my second renewal, so 4th year in business.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And, we've had absolutely no complaints out of your neighborhood.
I don't think so.
So it's gone pretty well. Okay, members of the committee, do you have any questions? Yeah.
Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question, but it's good to see you again, and I'm glad that things are continuing well. And like Chairman Lander said, I see no issue because you're never parking the vehicle off-street because you have plenty of room right there in the driveway. So that was just my only comment, but it's certainly good to see you again in front of us. Thank you, sir.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Also echoing what Councilor Irish had said and reviewing the materials, it being a renewal and, not seeing any complaints against your business, and that the query had gone through that I saw from the police chief. I don't have any concerns about the renewal of the application either.
Very good. How about our councilors over there in the western part of the chamber? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have one question. It seems that there's a partnership with you with the business. Is that true?
Partnership with...
For the business. I thought there was a reference to there being...
No, it is not a partnership. It's just one person.
Just one person,
yeah,
which would be
as the owner, operator.
Okay. Okay. Then never mind. Then I'm all set.
Okay, no problem. You might be talking, Councilor Doucette, about the one in your neighborhood. The
one in Bowstring? I might have gotten the two confused.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think they might be a joint venture, 2 cars, 2 people. But
okay.
We'll discuss that, I hope, tonight, because he is going to show up. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve order number 22-100-8514, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
the chair will second that. All in favor? 3-0, so it carries 3-0. And thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we do have a second one for the license for a taxi delivery. He is not here right now, so I would be, Mr. President, best to postpone that, or?
You can, Mr. Chair, you can just wait till the end of the meeting, see if the gentleman shows up. So
Yeah.
at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, so do I have to table it now, or can I
No,
just
you
skip
take
right
any
over?
order you want.
Yeah, okay, well,
You want it to
I'm gonna skip that one for now.
Mr.
So,
Landers, I placed him last because he couldn't come this early.
yeah, so we will get him in. It'll probably be around midnight, but, you know, we'll get him in. Okay, we're going down the next order, and we do have a representative from National Grid, so we'll put you in the oval hot seat there.
Al Galvin, Design Engineer, National Grid, Hopedale office.
Okay, can you give us a minute, 60 seconds or less, the scope of this project?
Sure.
Big.
Yes, so there's development on Vega Road. Apparently there's been some faults. It's a very old setup. It's all direct buried cables, so not a lot of protection there. So over time, those cables have started to break away and deteriorate. So they're replacing a lot of that cable with cable and conduit, which is a protected conduit with cable already built inside of it. And they're using a directional drilling method to cut back on any trenching that'll need to be made, so there's less digging in the ground. They just make periodic holes along the way. So it'll be all new wire, much more stable going forward, especially if any homes make upgrades, things like that. So that's basically it. And there's no outages that they need to take or anything like that. If they happen to need to make a hole near a driveway or something, they'll repair it as is. So.
Yeah, I think that's always the concern. You know, you've probably heard this story before, but my neighborhood was the first one 54 years ago that went underground utilities. And I think we've had 2 or 3 updates, but it has got better recently. I remember when they first put them in, dig a hole, put the cable down, backfill, you know. But over the years, it's been concerns everywhere, but it seems to be less concerns. But even today, you know, people are concerned about, first of all, where you guys are going to set up shop. You know, you're going to come in. This is a rather big project, so as I've mentioned before, if you work in conjunction with the Department of Public Works, especially the engineer, Tom, follow, you know, the way I'm going to list some of the recommendations he makes. But, you know, we are set up, we keep your equipment. The conditions are pretty good that, you know, you leave no holes open at night stuff. I will go over some of that stuff. Sure. But that's the big thing. People are always concerned, like me, always concerned about my lawn, you know, and stuff like that. Right. The driveway, you know, if you have to go across a driveway, you're going to try to burrow under. Right. But sometimes it doesn't always work. Now, my driveway, I get pavers. I don't know what the hell you do there, but that can be tough. So
they'll set up a time to go out there. They'll walk it out with the DPW and whoever they need to make sure everybody's on the same page. They'll schedule all those times to have site meetings and walk it through. So they're pretty good about, obviously, making everything safe as they go along and staying out of the public's way as much as possible so traffic flows and things of that nature.
Yeah, okay. I did get a memo from Tom DePercio. He's an engineer. He's the one, or his department is the one you'll be working most with. But Tom did write a memo to this committee regarding order number 22-1008541, the petition of Mass Electric to replace the direct burial cable on Woodland Estates with 5,457 feet. That's over a mile, right?
It's a big area.
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're gonna replace the conduit, you're gonna, the pole boxes, heavy-duty handhold, the junction boxes. I mean, you're gonna go,
They
you're gonna
bring-
do it the right way.
Yeah, bring everything up new, so it's not an issue for years,
Oh,
years and
These are
years.
some of the things that Tom wrote to us, and I just want to get it out there to the rest of the members and public, and maybe Tom can pick up on it if I left something out. But basically, some of this work was done last year as an emergency. And National Grid should confirm that what was installed last year will remain. The plans do not reflect this.
That is the
Okay,
case, yeah. I
number-
spoke to them last
Number,
night.
the next item, National Grid will be responsible for notifying residents of any work on private property, for obtaining permission for staging areas on private property if necessary, and for restoring any damages to private property. So you can see that these are the concerns that have gone to the Department of Public Works, and Tom's putting it down. So, rightly so. They want, and I think you guys have come a long way, they want their property to be as good as when you guys started.
Sure.
National Grid and their contractors shall walk the job area with a representative of the Department of Public Works Engineering prior to the start of the work to review and approve the final locations of equipment. And, you know, we don't want it the second weekend or halfway through, before you really start, you know, working, walk the whole project, all right, with someone from the Department of Public Works. It might be Engineer Percio, it could be one of his representatives, but I think that's key. And that makes the department feel good, but also makes the neighbors feel good.
Sure.
That they know that it's a good working relationship between, you know, National Grid and the Department of Public Works. The street opening permit is required from the Department of Public Works, which will outline pavement repair limits and specifications. So you guys are doing a pretty good job, but that's important. And then the attached standard conditions are also included, and I'm going to mention these for the people watching it at home or in here, that the petitions are the standard conditions that they've put together. Any necessary easements are to be obtained from the affected property owners, any easements. Street opening permit must be applied for by the proposed contractor performing the work. The contractor performing the work must obtain a street opening bond with the city of Marlborough. The contractor shall provide the engineering department pre-construction photos of the driveway, sidewalks, lawn areas, and roadway areas impacted by all construction activities. Tom, has that been in effect right along? I don't remember ever seeing the photos, but it's...
We haven't been including these standard conditions every time, Mr. Chairman, so it's relatively new. I think on a project like this is where it maybe is more warranted than a lot of the ones they come for, which is just like a single pole or something like that.
This is big league. This project's pretty big, so I think that would be a good idea. There's also concern mentioned, I think, to me, a proper staging area is to be located or acquired before the work starts. That's important. Material and equipment is not to be parked, stockpiled within the city right-of-way or on private property unless permission is granted in writing by the property owner. So whether that's, you walk through with the Department of Public Works, but there might be, on this particular project, you know, a pumping station or something that might be the ideal spot to set up an area that you could park your equipment at night, or maybe raw materials or whatever, stuff like that. I think that's something that the neighbors are always concerned about, and that's why I'm bringing it up here. The contractor is to ensure residents are always able to enter and exit their driveway, have necessary steel plates on site and accessible. And that's key too. I mean, that's neighbor, if, you know, the car's parked in the garage and they gotta make an appointment, they gotta, you know, get out there, so you can't hem someone in. Also, to ensure construction safety controls, a schedule of signage, drums, police detail are in accordance with the latest MUTCD standard. Now, Mr. DePercio, will you need police details down there in Vega and Jupiter and in Butler? Will you need police details down there?
For a lot of it, probably not.
Is that something you determine when you
when we walk it, yeah, we'll talk about that and exactly what their setup is going to entail and see if it's warranted at that time.
You know, Vega is not the busiest street. I made a couple U-turns there yesterday, and I didn't have any trouble with coming traffic.
It's plenty wide enough.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we continue here. Trench backfilling, compacting, temporary and final pavements are to be done in accordance with the City of Marlborough standard trenching details. Trenches are to be paved or completely backfilled and compacted at the end of each work day. Trenches are never to be left unattended. Post-construction looming and seeding are to be done in accordance with the 1995 MHD standards. Okay, that's key. Proposed utility poles should not be put in the sidewalk. Well, thank God we don't have any poles down there, so we have that. Those are the things that the Department of Public Works is looking for. And that's what the neighbors are looking for. You know, they want this project. They know they need replacement of all these underground utilities, but they want their neighborhood to look good during the construction, understanding that some things have to happen, but more importantly that as it ends, that it looks as good or better than what. And Mr. DePercio, is there anything I left out, anything that we should highlight more?
Nope. The only thing I would say is just to, as I mentioned, assuming the council votes to grant the location, you're granting some of it that was done as an emergency already. And I think these plans reflect where it was actually installed. I think the first plans we got, it showed it on the other side of the street, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
That,
so you're all set with that?
Yeah, it looks like it's correct on these plans, so.
Okay. Let's start with Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say thank you for reading the conditions, and I know Engineer DePercio, thank you, because that was the thing that came up on the public hearing for last year, the emergency work that was done in the area, but now it's revised and you see it on the plans, so that was my only concern at that point, and abiding by these conditions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman Landers. The question I have, you know, being newer to the council and maybe not having been exposed to projects like this in the past is, you know, it is a really big project and, you know, one that will, to a certain extent, impact the residents of the neighborhood. So I was just wondering about how often would a project like this need to be carried out? So, you know, say you put all of these elements in place, what would be an estimate of the next time a project to this magnitude would need to be done in that area? Right.
Well, utilizing the cable and conduit, now you have that protective covering on the wire. You're probably talking 40, 50 years, something like that. I mean, outside of like an accident or an incident or something damaging the lines. But with direct buried, there's that wear and tear over time, you know, in the ground, just exposed. So, you know, like that sheathing gives away. But in this, now it's got a protection on it, so, you know, you got double the time. So, yeah, shouldn't be any issues for decades.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. And then I also just wanted to thank our city engineer, Mr. DePercio, for all of the information and the bullet points. Again, being new, that was extremely helpful for me to kind of see on the city end and from your department, you know, how the checks and balances are made. So thank you.
Well, you'll be an expert. You'll be able to go into the construction business the longer you stay on this committee, because you learn a lot. I've learned a heck of a lot. Councilor Doucette, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. First is, you know, I live in a neighborhood that's had underground wiring with conduits that was installed in the early 90s, and the only issue we had was basically when a dump truck decided to leave its back open and take down 2 telephone poles on Route 20. a couple of months ago. That was lots of fun. Anyway, there's no issues once this stuff gets installed, because it's, you know, the cables are protected. That's the big thing, where before being buried directly, you just get nature doing its thing, you know. But I do have a question. When you're, there's a lot of conduit being installed. I'm assuming that a lot of this conduit is also going to go from the street to the homes themselves? Or is it just going to be the conduits of the street?
Just the street, I believe. That's all. That's my knowledge of it.
Okay.
So they'll drill holes, you know, near the transformers as they go along,
Yep.
and if they need to, you know, middle points,
Okay.
they'll go down 3-4 feet,
Yeah.
tap into the line there, come to the next transformer, upgrade that line. So the secondaries going back to the homes should be fine.
Okay.
They don't even
and-
need to take outages or anything.
Okay, so those will still be exposed to the elements, right?
Yeah, because those secondary lines are all customer owned.
Yeah, we don't own, we own those. I know after 54
Really?
years. Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, I appreciate that. Sure. Okay.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you give me, I'm actually very excited again to see this is in my ward. I've had multiple complaints. These neighbors, these residents have frequent loss of power, which is very disruptive, so I'm so happy to see this moving forward. When we finish this process, do you have a tentative schedule? Do you know like when it'll actually happen and how long the duration of the project roughly is expected?
Duration's roughly 3, maybe 4 weeks, once they get started. They asked for a waiver, or however you word it here, to maybe get a vote tonight so they can start drilling. They have drillers ready to go for the 4th.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for the 11th, as was discussed before. So I don't know if that's something you can do. They asked me to raise that. If you can vote on that and approve that, they can get started on the 4th.
Thank you.
And then you're talking 3-4 weeks.
Mr. President, our next meeting's the 11th, is that correct? City council meeting? Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna sit on this, we'll take a vote tonight. I will report it out on the 11th and ask for a suspension of rules and vote on it that night. But we don't have another meeting between now and the 11th.
Okay, so I'll tell them to
That might-
reschedule,
Yeah.
bump it back.
We will move on this. You know, the weather's improving, we want to, you know, move forward. And so that's the best we can do.
Okay.
Councilor Navy, I skipped over you last time, so you probably have a lot of questions.
Well, I'm not going to rehash the ones I had when I was skipped, but I forgive you for that, and everybody be grateful that they'll get home in time for dinner. I don't have any questions per se. I just want to say that, you know, I'm glad to see the grid making these investments. You know, it's good for the neighborhoods, as well as obviously for you guys for not having to go back for 40 or 50 years and doing this. And, you know, the city certainly appreciates, you know, the fact that you won't have any kind of impact on the roads, et cetera, after this. If you can do it once, and then we can, you know, when these roads get repaved, it's less inconvenient for the neighbors, and you don't have to worry about trees overhead and growing and tearing down those wires. So, you know, that's nice too. I know some people don't like it when they wake up and they happen to see, you know, the utility truck out just buzzing just enough of that tree to make sure the wires are safe, but
Right.
can do some damage. So, I appreciate you folks taking the effort and making these investments.
Sure.
Right.
Thank
So I guess to the people at home that are listening, or anybody in the audience, yeah, you can, you know, talk to the Department of Public Works, you can talk to the ward councilor, she's always available, and if she's not, you can call me, but it usually works pretty well. I mean, National Grid, they've been very good to us. Remember, these are a subcontractor that's doing the work. National Grid doesn't do it themselves. So, you know, if there's a problem, you know, we talk to the Department of Public Works, the engineering department, and it usually gets rectified. And they strive, you know, to make your electricity good and make your neighborhood look as good as before. Councilor Oram, did I skip you last time, or did you sneak in? I forget.
I'm not for sure if you saw me.
You were so fast.
I saw you at 6:30 saying I have to change the agenda up a little bit, so I actually saw you, but you couldn't see me.
Okay.
But I have no questions outside of, well, maybe one question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you go ahead.
And utility-wise, down this way, do they, and you wouldn't know, do they have natural gas pipes down there? Maybe Council Wagner might know, I don't know. I heard yes from someone in the back, Counselor, if that's what you were going to say.
So if residents are saying that there is gas, then there is, and I would just reiterate, this isn't the first time they've done this kind of project, and have full confidence that it'll be done correctly and done well, like it always is. So I'm sure that that people who have the technical skills will be looking into all that and marking, and hopefully will not be drilling through gas lines.
Well, and if I may, that wasn't my concern or my question. Actually, are the gas lines, and again, I know we're not here for that, but maybe if they're going to start doing some work down there, they should check on the gas lines just to make sure, but I don't know if that falls under this present item.
Right.
Thank you. That's all.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, okay, I think we can move forward, so if I can have a motion on order number 221008-541, and that's the petition for Mass Electric to move on this project.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
The chair will second that. All in favor? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to move forward now. What's that?
Just to reconfirm, will the committee entertain a suspension for this?
Oh, yeah, we better bring that up, yeah.
Have your committee vote on the suspension?
Yeah, can I have a motion to suspend?
Yes, I would. I would second that.
Second that. All in favor? Okay, we will, Mr. President, we will ask for suspension. Okay, got to sort things out here. We got a little change in order coming here. Well, let's go back to the application number, the order number 22108515, the application for a taxi livery license from Josh that lives at 43 Bowstring Way. And I guess his company is ROA Health System. If you people would come up and get in the oval hot seat here, we can get working on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just sit down, yep. Well, welcome to Public Service Committee.
Hi, everyone.
I believe you went for a license for a few years ago, but it never moved forward, did it? Or did it not?
This is the new one for us. Yeah.
Oh, it's a new. Oh, you're brand new. That's right. Okay, I thought I visited your neighborhood a couple years ago, and maybe it didn't. Well, I know Councilor Doucette will have some questions because that's his neighborhood.
Yes.
But you know, everything looks good. You did all the necessary paperwork. Yeah. The query came back from the chief. Yeah. Everything's fine there. You know, when I went down there, I noticed in your application, 2 cars, 2 people. Yeah. I guess that driveway is ample to sit. It kind of abuts the back of what your neighbor's house there, so there's maybe Councilor Doucette will clarify that. But does there seem to be enough room there to park 2 cars? I'll get to you, Councilor Doucette, in a minute, but. Well, if you want to respond now, you can, Councilor Doucette.
Most of the housing that they have here has adequate parking for 2 cars,
Okay.
if there's a minimum, so I don't see any issues with that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, you'll be having the 2 cars, are they there all night? Do they come in and out during the night, or how's your business work? I'm curious.
They can come in at night. I also have a place I can park in Framingham, so it won't be a problem at all, you know.
Okay.
We are towards the end of the street, and the the driveway we have can take up to 8 cars.
Okay.
Plus 2 garage. car garage that we have, so.
Okay, are you doing business now? Are you picking up customers?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not started.
What's the future look like? Can you see your business picking up now that things are waking up a little bit?
Yeah, we're hoping that it picks up as quickly as possible, you know. So what we're doing is the underground work, trying to build the business, you know.
Very good.
Yeah.
Councilor Irish, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, good evening, and I wish you luck with that. And obviously, we would not want to see any off-street parking, but it does seem like there's ample parking there. I had a question, because you're the owner of the residence, right?
Yes.
Now, is there a different spelling? Because when I was looking at some of the property lines, is there a different spelling of your name, or on the deed, I saw a different spelling? I just wanted...
Oh, different last name?
Different last name.
Yes.
And just asking, and that's fine. I was just curious, because if you were getting any insurance for your business, we'd want to make sure if the vehicle is garaged there, that you'd want to have the correct spelling for insurance purposes. That was my only question, but I wish you luck, and I have no concern as long as the vehicle's not parked on the road.
Well noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Chairman Landers. The questions that I was going to have were essentially answered with questions that the other councilors had, but I was really impressed with Councilor Irish, because I just came from a stint in auto insurance claims, and he is completely correct. And I respect that, you know, you did that digging, and that could have prevented a potential problem for you. So that I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
As you know, he's my right-hand man. Councilor Wagner, I'm going to start with you now, because we've already done Councilor Doucette. Do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions or comments at this time.
Okay. And Councilor Doucette, do you have any addition where this is?
I actually
your
have,
neighbor, really?
Yeah, it is, and thank you for helping serve the community. The name of the business is ROA Health Systems, so how is your business related to health systems? Are you specifically focusing on care transfer for patients or something, or just?
Right now it's going to be non-medical, so it's more like people going for maybe health, doctor's appointment and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, it's sorely needed, so it's good to know that that's available. But
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Orm, how about yourself? Do you have any questions or comments?
I was just looking at your property, actually. It's amazing. Google's everywhere. Maps are everywhere. Obviously, I know, where you are. I've been down there myself campaigning once in a while. As we all know, the driveways are limited. Question I would have is, I remember when I had to go down a campaign, there was a spot I could park at as a visitor. If for some reason there was an issue, would you be parking there first before Framingham? Did they give you any permission for any urgent matters? Like, say there's snow on the streets and you can't get down, but just curious.
Right now, what I would say is that the parking lot will be enough for what we're doing until we grow more. But I'm not gonna park on the visitors parking at all. Okay. So there won't be any need for that now.
So you have sufficient space is what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are towards the end of the road in Bowstring, so the driveways, if you take a look at it very well, it takes about 8 cars.
Oh, wow.
And then we have 2 garages built in, so the cars are not gonna even stay on the street at all.
Well, I think that answers my question, and thank you. And hopefully someday you'll grow so big, you can rent one of our commercial spaces.
I know, I believe Marlborough is a place of entrepreneurship, and growing is one thing I love to see, and I hope it grows.
Okay, very good. And finally, we get to Councilor Nabin. if you have any questions.
I do not, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just wish you a lot of luck. I'm glad to have your business in the community, and we hope it grows quite well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Doucette, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify the situation of the use of public visitor parking in that development, we get in trouble if we park our cars in visitor parking, period. So to make sure publicly, you guys know that too, not that you need to worry about it, but, you know, visitors parking is for visitors, not for, not for residents. So, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it out. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's see if we can move on order number 221008515. That's the application for a license for ROA Health System to operate a livery service at 43 Bow Street. Okay, that's my motion. Do I have a second on that?
A motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, passes, so I think we're all set. Good luck, good luck. We'll be voting on this at the April 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I got so much paperwork here, you can't believe that. Okay, we'll continue now. We will go back to, let's see, the order number 221085337A, communications from Mayor Vigent with the proposed amendment to the code of the City of Marlborough, Chapter 510, sewer, use of public sewers. First thing I'm going to do is to, I'm going to read it because I think everybody should hear it, especially the people at home, that the mayor did write the president and city council members a letter back on March 10th. Proposed amendment order and appropriation request to finance sewer connections. Honorable President, Ossing, and councilors. After several attempts to put forth a fair sewer connection order, enclosed for your review and approval is a final proposed amendment under Chapter 510, Section 2, Use of Public Sewers, subsection D. Property owners located where public sewers now exist or is constructed and are located at said effective date with the official notice by the Commissioner that the public sewer is available for connection will be required to connect upon transfer of existing properties or upon failure of a septic system. The Department of Public Works currently has hookups on hold for 30 days and will plan to use these current orders if these proposed amendments are not approved. The proposed changes will be helpful to residents as well as the Department of Public Works and Health Department by streamlining the sewer connection requirement. The point in time by which property owners have to connect the sewer prior to the sale will now be the same for properties on the street and existing sewer in streets where sewer is added in the future. Exemption language is clarified, including a new exemption allowing for homeowners to make the connection shortly after a sale by using the sale proceeds held in escrow. We are planning on implementing a betterment program, and I hope we expand upon this a little bit on our discussion, and have included an appropriation request in the amount of $100,000 from the undesignated funds for the sewer service betterment line for your review and approval. The sole purpose is for loaning homeowners who are not eligible through the community CDA up to $20,000 per property at the rate of 3% interest to cover the costs associated with connecting to public sewer. Depending upon quality of the loan, principal and interest collected, we may need to request additional funding for this program. So it's not, he's not saying it's limited to $100,000. It all depends what we need. That's something to keep in mind. The homeowner may petition the Board of Health for a loan, and the financing would fall under the form of a betterment agreement between the homeowner and the city. The loan would be payable by quarters for a 20-year term and appear on the homeowner's tax bill. The Department of Public Works, the Board of Health, Financial Office, and our legal department will be setting up a criteria for the betterment of the loan program. More information will be forthcoming. My staff and I will be available to discuss more in depth for future meetings. Well, what he meant by his staff, we have his full staff here. We have Sean, Commissioner of Public Works. We have Tom as a chief engineer. And I believe we got John sitting behind that post there. He's from the health department. So we have, you know, the three players that we need to either expand upon the mayor's letter, ask questions or clarification or what have you. So I hope we have a good discussion, and I'd like to move on this tonight, be quite honestly. Okay. Mr. Commissioner, could I call upon you to give us a little better expansion or overview of what the mayor was saying here? And bring your whole crowd up if you want. Yeah, yeah, come on. Okay, Commissioner, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for inviting us tonight. So I think the mayor's letter is a very good summary of what's in front of the committee here tonight. But just to kind of reiterate a little bit, the City of Marlborough had in place for many, many years a sewer connection ordinance, Chapter 510 of the General Code, that required people to connect to sewers that were in existence or if they were to be built. And there wasn't any qualifiers with that, there wasn't any timelines with that, and it was a difficult situation for property owners and for the city to enforce the requirement to connect. So what we did very recently is to put in certain qualifiers, to put in certain timelines to better describe the conditions for which one would need to connect to public sewer. So after having rolled that out, we got some feedback from the community. We got some questions, and people wanted some better clarification. So we took that those requests, put that together, kind of thought about it for a little bit, and now in front of you tonight is further clarification and a request to amend what was recently amended to make it more clear, make it more straightforward. And so I will call upon Mr. DePercio, Mr. Garside to provide a little more detailed information if you would like, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'll go by age. I think we'll call on the city engineer next. I don't know if you're younger or older, but that's the
going descending or ascending. I'll take it. So the main gist of this change, Mr. Chair, is the requirement. What the original amended order said was where sewers did not exist yet at the time of the change. In other words, going forward as we install new sewers, the requirement was that those homeowners, once that new sewer was available, had 180 days to make a connection. This new amended order basically strikes that, and it says that whether the sewer exists now or going forward with new sewers as they're installed, the requirement will be for most people prior to the sale of the property. So in all cases, that will be it, with a couple other things that are less common that could trigger that connection requirement too. But that's the main change that's before you tonight.
I see. I think I understood that. I think it's a good thing, really. John, how about the health department?
I would just, in following up what Tom had to offer, time of transfer is really something that we see with septic systems. and it almost runs itself with the realtor community, the legal community. Nobody wants to buy a house that doesn't have a passing Title V septic system if you're on septic. So I think with the sewer connection, it'll be similar, where folks won't be able to transfer, the bank won't give you a loan if you don't connect to sewer in this case. So the homeowner would do it at that point, or they'd escrow some money and perform it up to maybe 6 months after the closing. And that would be a variance provision through my office, but really handled administratively so as not to slow down that type of transaction. So, as we speak towards the betterments, this would be for folks who are selling their house, need to connect. There's really not a caveat. I think really anyone would be eligible is how we're proposing that program. As we get to that, Mr. Chairman, I think that's all I have at this point, though.
Okay. It's kind of interesting. When someone puts their house on the market, is it up to the seller or the real estate agent to state the fact that a house is either septic or on city sewage? And which one? Is it the owner or is it the real estate? I'm not.
I guess I'm not completely sure, Mr. Chairman, but
we don't have a solicitor here tonight, so I'm not going to hold you to it.
But they're all pretty good. The realtors are pretty good, right? You know, in the Title V or the septic system world, they're pretty good at saying get your Title V inspection before you list the house, ideally. So, you know, messaging is certainly one of the things that we all do and will continue to do, so the public is aware of, you know, in this case, it's a sewer connection required versus a Title V upgrade, say, which has been the case really all along, but really kind of brought to light more recently in enforcement forthcoming, I guess.
I was surprised over the years. I think it was Councilor Delano that pushed for the expansion of the sewer system down the Sudbury Street area. And I don't know, the sum of money seemed like it was up around $5 million or something like that. And I think I supported it as a councilor because I was surprised that we still had areas of Marlborough that were not on city sewerage in the septic system. But I soon realized that, well, the reason nobody was on city sewerage, there was no piping or no pumping and so forth down there. So what percent of the city now, especially down that area, the east end, is still waiting to get city sewerage, or will ever have it? You know, Tom? Just roughly, we won't hold you to it, but.
So the project that's been ongoing that Councilor Delano spearheaded is just about done. Mm-hmm. I would say it's probably 80% done. Once that's done, there's still going to be some pockets in different areas of the city that don't have sewer, but I'd say overall the city it's over 90%, probably well over 90% has sewer available.
Yeah. Which I think is good for us, and I think it says a lot about the city of Marlborough, really. I was curious about that. I could throw other things out, but I'm going to let my colleagues throw things out. Betterments, I think we have to, basically $100,000. John, you say this is just a start.
Yeah, right.
Because it said somewhere in the mayor's letter that we probably have to look for more funding.
Right, and so understanding as the regulation changed and it's time of transfer now, I don't know how many transfers we have in the city over the course of a year, but it's going to bring that number way down as before it was, if it ran by your house, you shall connect. So we're not faced with that type of burden or run, if you will. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the $100,000 will, and I heard some folks talking a little earlier, $100,000 is probably 5 or 6 connections, right?
Probably 5, huh?
Yeah.
20,000 a piece sound good?
Yeah. And it's funny, like with the betterment, the Board of Health has some statutory obligations. We're referencing there quite a bit, but the DPW folks really with the sewer connections, do the heavy lifting. We do an abandonment procedure at the time of sewer connection, but really it's Sean and Tom's guys and staff that do the plan approval, the inspections for the sewer connections, the permitting. So, you know, we're all in this together, if you will, and reference at different points, but for different reasons. But practically speaking, DPW has the heavy lifting on this.
Are there certain contractors in town or in the greater Marlborough area that would be doing the bulk of these installations, do you know? And then if there are, do you have to approve them, or do you have to make sure they know what the heck they're doing?
Yeah, so we have to...
There's a list, I guess, Tom.
There is a list, yep, and they have to get, contractors have to get a license to work on the sewer or the water system in the city. They get licensed annually, and if it's a new contractor, then we need references, and we have to look at their insurance, and they have to be bonded and so forth. So there's a procedure, and then they get put on a list, and typically the residents, if they don't already have a contractor, they'll ask us for that list, and they'll get quotes from the contractors on the list.
Well, that's great. That makes me feel good as a citizen, but also a city council. It really does. Okay, I'm going to open it up to my committee members, and we'll go right around. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe a question for Engineer DePercio. Again, what is the cost? It can vary probably. What's the cost to hitching up to the public sewer for a resident?
Yeah, it can vary, as you said, as you can imagine.
The size of the length.
Yeah, the length of the run, and then the conditions of the property. So, you know, obviously we've been asked that question a lot by residents, and what we're starting to hear maybe as like a starting point as a rough estimate is, you know, $80 to $100 per foot of length, but, you know, again, that's what comes with the big disclaimer that it really can vary from there.
Okay. And then the other one, maybe you can answer this as well. Would this fall under the community septic management program that the state has run? It's like a revolving fund. I know this is just the amendment part of it, but in the future for funding, as opposed to the funds coming directly from the city, is there any other management programs by the state?
So John might know more about that, but I think that what we talked about was that the city would have some more flexibility in how we can structure this program if we didn't use the funds that come from the state.
Understand, because that would be, then the city council as a body would have to vote on other processes going forward, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you want
I can add a little bit there,
Councilor.
The state revolving fund, if the city was to request funds in that way, you'd be subject to participate in the program, you'd have to have a failing septic system, so regardless of, you know, if your system was working, you were selling a house, you really wouldn't be eligible.
Understand.
And B and or C would be you need an inspection program or a management plan.
I saw that, yes.
For the existing septic systems, which would require regulation or ordinance, so there's an enforcement provision. It would require approval from DEP of this inspection plan or a management plan. And then B, you'd need to enforce it, so you need local regulation. So it would put another layer and level of burden, not only on staff, but on residents, and I think
it wouldn't be as a smooth process going forward.
Yeah, whereas we're not upgrading septic systems, we're making sewer connections. So the thinking was, you know, it would be easier if the city provided.
That makes sense. Thank you, Director.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Good questions. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I was newly elected, the very first question that I received from a constituent was actually regarding this matter. They had received the letters that went out to residents, and there is a Realtor who's located in my ward, and one of her clients had received the letter. So I actually got to learn a little bit about this.
You know a lot more after tonight, you know.
Oh, yeah, no, things are coming full circle for me. This is good. So I had the opportunity to actually learn a bit about this right off the bat when I started. And I just wanted to clarify for myself, and also for, you know, anyone else who might be listening or other counselors, that you know, for example, where I live, there's a lot of rock ledge. So say there is a resident who is currently on a septic system and they're going to sell their house, and say they're on a lot of rock ledge and also set pretty far back from the street. It's my impression and understanding that there would be an opportunity for residents to apply for a variance with that hardship through the Board of Health. I just wanted to ask if that's correct, just because this was back when I was first starting out, and just want to make sure that's clear for me.
Yep, that it is correct, and it's in the second part of the ordinance. We clarified a little bit of the clunky language that was in the old ordinance with what you see tonight. That's part of the amendments, but basically we recognize that there's going to be some cases where it just isn't feasible, either from an engineering standpoint or just financially, to make the connection. And we've talked a lot about how you know, what's the cutoff there, and that's been a tough thing that we're struggling with, and we think we've arrived at. And the basic thing that we kind of said is that these variances should be rare, because we do want all the properties to be connected ideally, and that if we're going to vary this requirement in perpetuity, then there should be some work on behalf of the homeowner to show that it's required. So we're going to ask that they provide a plan and an estimate of what the connection would be, so that you know, we can verify that, yeah, this is really a above and beyond type of connection. And then also, if we say that they don't have to connect to the sewer, we should feel good that they can replace their septic system when that fails. So part of it will be that they'll have to show us that they can replace the septic system with some semblance of a new system that's close to what Title V would require. There'll be some conditions there, but there is a provision to allow for a variance if it's warranted.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying. I appreciate it. I have no further questions.
Okay, we'll go right up the line. We'll go to Councilor Orem if you have any questions or comments. This is kind of your old business, right?
Very much so. I still work in this area a little bit, so, but I yield to the Public Health Director of Marlborough. He's been given some great information. I just had a couple questions during the redraft of the ordinance. Curious if indeed, I'm grateful for the consideration of a need, but it's going to take, I don't know how many connections you have a year, but it's going to take some time on both your parts in respect to the review and the waiver. Has that been figured into this so that you don't get real estate's hot right now. I'm just afraid, you know, I don't know how many of these transactions, maybe that should be my question, we see a year in the areas that haven't tied in yet?
Well, so we're just starting this. This is uncharted territory, so I don't have a good sense in terms of the number of real estate transactions that happen. We're starting to hear now that some of them are happening and people are asking questions. So I think what you're probably getting at is that if there's a sale that's, someone's selling their property, that's going to take some time to put together this information that they need to request a variance, and yeah, that's true.
A challenge, possibly.
Yeah.
You know, there's even cash sales where John may not even get a Title V report on that at the Board of Health, because I've seen it. Cash sales, they forget to do that. Isn't that convenient? So there'll be that opportunity probably to check with the assessor or whoever tracks the real estate sales too, just to make sure it's fair for all in case there's a cash sale and they didn't do a Title V. The one condition that may be a possibility, maybe an automatic waiver for a couple months is, what I see a lot is when you see the pavement plants closing and the frost coming into the ground. Sometimes, we saw it this year, it gets down pretty deep. Will there be some consideration for if I sold my house in December, a time period to get to the springtime? Has that been discussed?
Yeah, and that's alluded to.
Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, and that is something that we recognize, and that's kind of where the escrow comes in. And
Okay,
that
that's
would
B.
be a variance of the time, basically. We would give them, I don't know if it tells the time of 6 months, but that's what
6
we
months,
talked
and
about.
that is for that type of situation.
Yes.
Okay, I was getting that confused with the 5 years, so, but you added that in blue. I do see that, and that's great. City involvement with betterments. I've dealt with the betterment where I worked. The issue I have with them sometimes is, and maybe it's different for the city, with all the resources you two, all three of you have, but it takes some resources when you start a betterment. I went through 5, and then we finally said, for the town of Ashland, where I used to work, we finally said, let's see if the private entity can handle betterments, which they can. And we started sending people to the banks, because it involves the treasurer, the assessor, the Board of Health, the DPW, the collector of taxes. It's a major team effort. And just so you know, when I was in this field and we were doing betterments, we found it so much easier just to send most of it for the loan to the bank. You still have some city involvement, some consideration you may want to take. About 2 years ago, the one bank that, and you'd have to check, that was still in this area, that was helping out with betterments, was Main Street Bank. They were, like for me, thankfully they're around and they're not too far from where I worked, but just so you may want to check into that, because I just foresee you getting bogged down with this. This could be a very busy type of ordinance for you guys. So, and then if I may, Mr. Chair, I just have a couple other questions.
Your time's almost up, Councilor.
Okay. I would just suggest in public information, this is my last point.
Sure.
Is that, send it to the realtors if this becomes an ordinance. Send it to the Title V inspectors and the residents who may be affected. I don't know if that's 500 people or what, but maybe a personal letter saying, just so you're aware, you sell your property, this is the ordinance, break it down a little bit for the residents like the mayor did in the letter. I would suggest that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just to answer that, we have already sent a letter.
You already have. Thank you.
Very good, good comment.
I guess I'm not on that list.
Very good, Councilor. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I can assure you that the letter went out because I got a phone call from an irate constituent who got one of those letters. Basically, and trying to understand what's going on from this myself. It's an elderly couple. They've lived in the house forever. They put a septic system. The sewer went in a couple of years afterwards, but they never connected to it. So they have a septic system where there's one old lady that basically lives in the house, so it will most likely pass Title V. But if she decides to sell the property, she will then have to be forced to go into this process, assuming that there's no physical constraints in making the connection to the house from the street, right?
Correct.
So this is something that is going to be a requirement for her as she's looking to basically, move to, downsize out of the house that's been in her family's for most of her life. And she's quite upset about that because it's a burden cost that she has to take on to some extent, either directly or indirectly through escrow or betterments. But my question is, and I'm not sure if you guys can answer this, but if someone's trying to sell it, first, just to be clear, right, they have to connect in whenever they transfer the property, unless someone does a cash sale and they don't do a check or something like that, right? But let's assume that that is the case. Even though the septic system would pass Title V, they would still have to connect in, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the, how does the real estate agent look at that as far as setting the value of the property? Because it seems to me that the properties that have sewerage already connected up has some sort of premium versus septic in most markets. So the opportunity or the requirement to connect into sewer, I'm assuming would actually increase the value of the house at that point. It would be, from a real estate perspective, I know this is not in your scope, guys, but I'm just trying to, but it seems that, at least it would be that the house would be sold as if it was connected to sewer versus if it would be connected to a septic system, right? That's how it would be approached from the market. Because it would.
I think that's a good assumption, yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, so whatever the, if there's a discount for a septic system, it would not apply. I don't want to say it's a premium for sewer, but there would, but I'm just trying to understand that because, there will probably be other constituents from other councilors that are going to have a similar situation that they're just going to say, oh, what do you mean I got to connect up to the sewer? I've never connected up before, and this is what she's going through right now,
Yeah, we've heard from many of them already when we sent the letters out.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we've also heard from folks that are subject to the regulation that they feel it will benefit their property values to connect as well. So it does factor in, I think.
And goes up, yeah. Okay, okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So briefly, a little more history on this. This project actually goes back before the previous Ward 1 councilor to Robert Katz. So I'm on a street where we just got sewer, so I'm intimately aware of what's happening with this and got many of those very angry phone calls. And so I'm grateful that the leadership has stepped back and looked at how can we do this more fairly. But millions and millions of dollars has been invested in because residents said we want sewer. I'm one of the people that have the 30-year-old plus septic system, and you might think it works, and you get it, emptied every year. And some of the residents have said my septic system works fine. Well, it works fine until it doesn't. And unless you're excavating around the pipes and seeing if any roots are going through, because one of the pipes just collapsed and it backed up into my basement. So it's not like the warning light on your car that you say, hey, you should check the brakes. Your septic works, and then you've got a basement full of sewage. So it's horrible. My neighborhood, actually, we just got sewer. Everybody, save 2 people who were in the process, can't wait to hook up, and they're already talked to approved people to come in and do it. We're at the end of this project. And so it became, okay, the city's invested all this money, and some of the people that were clamoring for, yes, we want this sewer because it's so much better, septic's horrible, that we want the sewer. And then it was put in, and then they were like, well, it's expensive, I'll wait till my septic breaks. And the problem with that thinking is when your septic breaks, now it's an emergency, and in any emergency, when you need those kind of services, cost way more than when it's planned, so that's often not a good plan. But so we did this, and it is also not like the old days when everyone read the paper and knew what was going on in town. We made this, we made it public, we changed the amendment that it was 90 days on the books. We made it 180 days if the sewer comes through your neighborhood. And how do you communicate that? Most people didn't know. Someone like me who's been waiting for this, our neighborhood, we've had meetings, we've all been anxiously awaiting and watching this very closely. Some folks, because it's been, good 20 plus years, have moved, and new folks have moved in and had no idea about any of this history. And so they didn't know, and the first person that went to sell found out through the realtor, and they had whatever the process is through the city, and someone said, oh, hey, by the way, you have to connect to the sewer. And that was sort of unfair. I get that in the moment. Then they're like, what? And it put a monkey wrench in everything. So then I was very grateful. The DPW sent out letters. I believe it was like 400 plus letters to people that said this had to happen, and let local realtors know that make sure this. It went above and beyond to make sure people knew, even though it was publicly advertised and we did everything we were supposed to do. We made that really grateful to that extra effort to make sure people knew that this is happening. So then once the letters got out, there were quite a few residents that were anxious about 180 days. How am I going to? It's running about 12 to 15,000 depending on your lot. So it's a lot of money. So again, residents like us, we've been waiting for this for 20 years. We've planned for it. We have money set aside for it. If it's a shock to you, somebody might not be able to come up with that kind of money. So the best time to do it is during a sale of a house. And I hear it, it's going to cut into what you thought you were going to get, but I also think it's really important. There was just a housing report that came out that's got Massachusetts as the 4th highest housing in the country, right below California. Values have gone up like 26%. I bought my house for $185,000 and the neighbor's selling theirs for $700,000, I think, plus. So like that's the time to factor in money to get the septic done. And it's hard when it's just like, you've got 180 days to figure out how to make this happen. Then you're talking loans. If you have that, if you have access to that, it's much more challenging for people than at the time of the sale. The values, the housing market is just kind of incredible right now, and now is the time. That's the easiest way to make this happen. And again, it's fairness. The city has invested millions in this infrastructure. People have to connect to it, and it does. It's an improvement to your property. And but I've seen just, there are things in place for those unique situations. The variance is easy to find. It's on DPW. I've sent on this website. I've sent it to people. The city's, from my understanding, is not looking to, you know, create financial hardships for anybody. If there's some real, you know, my residents have talked, my constituents have called me, and I've helped people through the process. The city will work with people. I think this betterment plan is a nod towards that. Look, we understand if your septic fails now and you don't have any money, what do you do? And again, when I thought mine was completely gone, I actually asked, I probably talked to you, John, and asked, can I use an outhouse until the sewer comes in? And I was told no. So if your plumbing's out, your house is not habitable. So it's a nightmare that has to be addressed immediately. So that's my 2 cents. This is excellent. I think this addresses the problem. I'm grateful that the 180 days was taken out. It was very, very difficult for people, and the betterment's there, and there's, you know, there's room for, and it's not just, it's if you're selling the house, if your septic fails, because you shouldn't be fixing the septic, you need to take the money and connect to sewer, which is actually cheaper than putting in a new septic system, or if there's any major structural changes, there's 2 of them that speak to that, like if you put a addition on or do something that changes the flow, I think, to your house, then you have to, that's the time when you have to hook up. So I mean, I'm personally impacted by this. I support it wholeheartedly. I'm grateful that the thought that's been put back behind this, what's fair, you know, what needs to be done, and how can we also help the residents, you know, make this the most fair process for our residents. And I was really excited to see the betterment funds in there too to help, because some poor slob's going to get caught with their septic's going to die and they have to get this fixed and they have no money. So now this, you know, this is wonderful. I don't think it's going to be those really unique, tough situations when it's an emergency, and the city to have this fund, and let's see how it works and how, you know, how many people it can help, and if it's really successful, maybe we can add to it. So I was really excited to see that too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Wagner. Sounds like the voice of experience there. Mr. President, I've skipped over you all night, so I'm going to wrap it up with you.
I do believe you skipped Councilor Navy, but
well, I can go to my. I want to go this way. I don't want to. I don't want to skip you. I've skipped you all night, so I better do it while it's on fresh in my mind.
So a couple of things. So I want to applaud the mayor, Board of Health, and DPW for the changes to the ordinance. I think the ordinance reads much better. So Tom, thanks. I appreciate all the work you guys, John, the work you guys have done. I just want to be clear. I think I may have misheard it earlier, but the ordinance before we made any of these changes required people to hook up within 90 days. We just never enforced it. All right, so I don't want people to think we're doing this just to be bad guys. The rules have been out there forever. We've just done a not so good job implementing. All right, as Councilor Wagner mentioned and Tom confirmed, there's about 420. Microphone. Mike. It's on. The mic's on. Is it not coming through? Knock on the door. Make sure it's working. It's on. The green light's on. He says it's on.
Switch mics.
Chair.
That's where you belong.
All right, so I apologize. So, Tom, as you mentioned, so 420 people plus or minus are impacted. That number is going to grow as new people hook up and some folks come off. I would encourage yearly notification to these folks because they're not going to remember. And if you have that list, I just encourage that to go out because it needs to be reinforced. And I still think it's going to be frustrating when they find out they got to sell their house that now they got to do it. So if we keep just pounding home that message, I think it's very, very important. I'm also concerned, and I've had this discussion with John and Tom, once we set that first exemption, that's going to set the bar. So if it's a cost thing that says 70 grand's too much or something, once you set that first one, that becomes now the bar for everyone else that's looking for an exemption. So I would be very cautious and be very prudent on how you set those exemptions. You take them into consideration, but be careful on it. Regarding betterments, I like the idea, but I'm candid. I don't understand it completely yet, and I would encourage the committee not to approve the betterments part right now until we have the assessor come down and kind of walk us through, because I'm still not clear how you apply for one, how you get one, how much work's involved. I understand the concept, but I don't understand the process, and I don't want to be approving some funding for something that we don't have a good handle on yet. And so I really think there's no hurry. I don't think anybody, if someone's looking for one, you know, come on down, tell us how it works, and we'll approve it right away. But I would not approve the betterment portion. I would recommend the committee support this ordinance change. I think this is the right thing. We've done what I call some lessons learned, and I think it's important that we get this on the books cleaned up right away. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Councilman A, well, you'll be the caboose.
Always a tough act to follow. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would just echo a lot of the comments that have already been said. Appreciate folks taking a second look at this, you know, and kind of hearing what folks have said, making this a reasonable change. It's incredibly important, as Councilor Wagner said, that, you know, we are investing quite a bit of money to expand our sewer system, and, you know, the pipes that are getting put in people's streets need to get used. It's an environmental benefit. It's a financial benefit, you know, for the people who are paying the bills to run the sewers and our wastewater facilities. You know, so that is incredibly helpful for how the city operates. I did have one question, and I support what the president mentioned about, you know, taking a long look at this betterment program. I think it's incredibly important. I think it can be very helpful. I think we need to do it right. Director Garside, as you mentioned, right, it doesn't present as though it's, you know, quite a bit of money when you're talking about, you know, maybe it's 5 or 6 hookups. I do think that program will be oversubscribed. So I do look forward to having, you know, some additional conversations about this. You know, having this fund available to people will be very helpful. One thing I am curious about, you know, we should continue this conversation when we talk about the betterment, but if there are parts of the city that are, let's say, adjacent to sewered areas of the city, you know, be it a private way or a small development that is currently on septic, I think it's appropriate that they're not required to hook up because it is not directly on their street, as I understand it. However, if there was an environmental benefit to be had, and this the group of residents on this way wanted to connect, I'd be curious to know if there was some sort of better way to expand the betterment program to almost incentivize parts of the community that could help to hook up to a sewage system. You know, and so that may be something we want to continue to look at as we're discussing this. You know, it's nice to not require people that would have to go through extenuating circumstances to connect, but if they did want to, you know, how can we partner with them and how can we make it a little bit easier for them and also beneficial to the city as well? So that's just something I would encourage and make sure we're looking at. And then with that, I will return my time.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. President, getting back to you for a minute, do you think we should move forward on this except for the betterment program? Exclude that from our motion?
Karen, you got work to do now that that microphone doesn't work. Yes, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that the committee vote favorably on the ordinance change, move forward with that, and just keep the betterment portion in committee right now and have the assessor and maybe the mayor come back and just give us a little more details on how that whole process works. I think that would be beneficial for the committee as a whole, as well as the entire council.
Okay, I think that does make sense. Just among the committee members, you concur with that? Okay.
Yeah, that works for me, Mr. Chair. I mean, I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the President, I just had a question. I know this is a change of the amendment, but it doesn't have any language in here on the betterments, right? No. Okay. The ordinance does not. Correct. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm for a motion to approve order number 22-100-8537-A with just the change to the amendment, and then we'll go forward at a later time with the betterments and have the city assessor and the mayor's staff come in and fill us in on how they are going to implement that process.
Councilor Brown, would you like to second that?
Yes, I agree. It's second.
Okay. I think we're ready for a vote on that. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Just a few comments. I want to thank the mayor's support staff here. You guys did a great job right along. You've kept us all informed. I think you performed very well tonight. I think you answered all our questions. And, this is a big matter. This is, very important to the city, to the residents, to certain residents of certain parts of Marlborough. So I think you did an excellent job. Councilor Wagner.
Thank you. Just while we have Commissioner Garside here today, just to clarify, so my understanding, the way the letter's written, that the homeowner would petition the Board of Health for the loan, for the betterment, and then so we need to hear from the assessor how the actual financing, how that would work, because it would go on people's quarterly tax payments. But the actual, so while you're here, Mr. Garside, maybe, I'm guessing you know about this, and do you want to talk, because that might help clarify how this works while we have you tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have a couple paragraphs here that the working group put together explaining the betterment program, and it'll hit on, I think, some of the, not that it'll change the course of tonight, but I think any time we can get the message out in regarding the program is a good opportunity for us. So if it's appropriate, I'd read a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, share them with us.
Okay. As someone mentioned earlier, the loan is provided through the City of Marlborough at a 3% interest rate for a period of 20 years. To qualify, all of your real estate taxes, water bills, and any and all other municipal accounts must be paid and up to date. You must also be eligible to receive funding from you must also not be able to receive funding from the Marlborough Community Development Authority to connect your property to the public sewer system. So as an aside, there is an option for folks to work through community development, income eligible folks, to get really a better deal, if you will, through them if they qualify. So we steer folks in that direction first, at the same time saving our, what is now $100 grand for others that would benefit. The website is listed here to go to community development to see the eligibility criteria. There is no credit check required at any point in this process. The loan application will require the submission of 2 estimates. The completed application will be reviewed for approval by the Department of Public Works. Once approved, the applicant will be required to sign a betterment agreement with the City of Marlborough and complete a homeowner affidavit. The loan will be secured as a betterment assessment against your property, and a notice of betterment will be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The betterment assessment will be paid off at any time, can be paid off at any time without penalty. Loan payments are due as part of your property tax bill. Please be advised that the City of Marlborough will not disperse loan funds until the connection to the public sewer system has been completed. If you are a resident and homeowner of the City of Marlborough interested in the sewer betterment program, then complete an application and submit it to the Department of Public Works. You'll be notified as to your eligibility. You should be aware that the City of Marlborough may exhaust available monies made available under the program. If so, then you may be placed on a waiting or priority list until additional monies become available. So back to your question, Councilor Wagner. What was it? I apologize.
I just, while you were here tonight, to elaborate on your part of this, so that hopefully we'll answer the question in the future. Sorry, thank you. So if we want to pick this up again, so we've heard how that works through the Board of Health, and then I guess the remaining question is, how will this, I guess if you want to extend this further, I mean, it seems pretty clear cut to me, but if you want to have yet another discussion, we could have the assessor come in and talk about, well, how does it actually get on your bill? So that's the remaining question, I guess, there. But otherwise, it seems pretty clear cut to me.
Yeah, I think my feeling is that, John, we'll get your information. That was very well done there. Set up another meeting with the health department and the assessor's office. How does that sound, Mr. President? Sure. I think that's what we'll go. So.
And we met, Mr. Chairman, with the finance director, and he was very helpful in regards to the betterment piece of it, too.
Maybe we'll pull him in, too. Okay, so we passed the, you got that, Karen, all down, right? So, you know, we've done our task, and I think, again, you guys did a super job right on it. And I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank my committee and my colleagues. I think you asked some good questions. You gave it a lot of thought. And I think what you've demonstrated to me and probably others, how important this is. This big thing. And it affects a lot of people now and, you know, in the future. So I want to thank you all very, very much. Saying that, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that motion. All in favor? Boom. And we're adjourning at, Karen, at 8:59?
8:59.
That's pretty good.
I had it at 7:58.
Look at the score.